The First Rejection, Dylan Wong's road from heartbreak to reinvention. Failure has a strange way of shaping destiny. For Dylan Wong, who would later become one of China's most beloved actors, the first rejection he ever faced in the entertainment industry was not just a blow to his confidence. It was a spark that pushed him to reinvent himself. Looking back now, his journey is a testament to resilience, self-discovery, and the power of rising after every fall. Dylan Wong didn't grow up dreaming of overnight stardom. Born in Chengdu, Sichuan, he was an ordinary boy with an extraordinary sense of imagination. Friends remember him as playful and curious, someone who often straddled the line between reality and fantasy. His earliest interests lay in sports and music, but deep inside, he harbored a fascination for storytelling. Like many young dreamers, Dylan looked at the glittering world of entertainment with awe. He admired the stars he saw on television and wondered what it would feel like to live inside the stories that captivated millions. That spark grew brighter during his teenage years, eventually nudging him toward acting. In his early 20s, Dylan found himself standing in line for his first major audition. The role was small, yet significant. It was for a secondary character in a television drama. The production company was well known, and the opportunity could have been his stepping stone. Dylan prepared tirelessly. He practiced lines in front of the mirror, sought feedback from friends, and even watched countless dramas to mimic professional actors' techniques. "I was nervous, but I thought I had a chance," he would later recall in interviews. When the moment came, Dylan walked into the audition room, heart pounding. Casting director sat behind a long table, eyes fixed on him. He performed with sincerity, pouring every ounce of passion into his delivery. For a moment, he thought he had nailed it. But days later, the dreaded call came. "We're sorry. You didn't make it." The weight of rejection. Rejection, especially the first one, cuts deeply. For Dylan, it felt like the ground had collapsed beneath him. His confidence shattered, and questions swirled in his mind. Was I not good enough? Did I make a mistake chasing this dream? Should I give up before wasting more time? He replayed the audition in his head countless times, obsessing over every line, every gesture, every glance. His friends tried to cheer him up, but the disappointment lingered like a shadow. More than the rejection itself, it was the harsh feedback that stung. One director had remarked, "You have presence, but you lack depth. You need to bring more than just a face to the screen." That sentence echoed inside Dylan for weeks. It was painful, yes, but also transformative. Many aspiring actors would have turned away at this point, deciding that the industry wasn't worth the heartache. Dylan, however, chose differently. Instead of giving up, he made a bold decision to reinvent himself. "I realized I couldn't just rely on natural charm or appearance," Dylan once said. "If I wanted to make it, I needed to study the craft seriously. I had to be more than just someone who wanted to act. I had to become an actor." Reinvention for Dylan meant stripping down his weaknesses and rebuilding his skills from scratch. He began with acting workshops, attending classes where he was often the least experienced in the room. He observed others closely, taking notes on how seasoned actors inhabited their roles. He also immersed himself in theater, a world where every gesture, every pause, and every breath mattered. Theater taught him discipline. It demanded raw authenticity, something cameras could not fake. Dylan learned to project emotions not just through words, but through silence, body language, and presence. Beyond acting, he worked on his voice. He practiced diction exercises daily, learning to articulate with clarity and emotional resonance. He studied literature and film scripts, dissecting characters to understand their psychology. But reinvention wasn't just about skills. It was about character. Dylan disciplined his lifestyle, waking early, training his body, and feeding his mind with books and films that inspired him. Slowly, he was sculpting himself into someone new. Reinvention isn't glamorous. For nearly 2 years after his first rejection, Dylan lived quietly. While peers posted selfies and updates about auditions, he disappeared into what he called his incubation period. He worked part-time jobs to support himself while dedicating his free hours to practice. Some friends worried he was wasting time. Others thought he was clinging to a dream that had already slipped away. But Dylan kept going. He knew that growth happens in silence, away from the spotlight. "I told myself, these quiet years are not wasted," he later shared. "They are preparation. One day, the world will see what I was building." Opportunity has a way of finding those who prepare for it. A new casting call came up, this time for a romantic drama. Dylan was hesitant at first. Memories of rejection still haunted him, but something inside urged him to try again. This time, when he stepped into the audition room, he wasn't just a young man reciting lines. He was a performer who had studied, trained, and transformed. His delivery carried depth, his gesture subtlety, and his presence undeniable. Casting directors noticed immediately. One of them leaned over and whispered, "He's different. He's ready." Dylan got the part. The role was not a lead, but Dylan treated it with the seriousness of a main character. He poured his heart into every scene, ensuring that even brief moments left an impression. Audiences noticed, critics took note, and suddenly, his name began to circulate in industry circles. More opportunities followed, and with each project, Dylan's reputation grew. When he finally landed his breakout role in Meteor Garden, he was no longer the inexperienced dreamer who had stumbled in his first audition. He was a reinvented actor, confident, skilled, and prepared. Looking back, Dylan often calls his first rejection a blessing in disguise. It hurt, yes, but if I had gotten that role, maybe I would have been complacent. I would never have realized how much I needed to grow. That rejection forced me to rebuild myself, and I'm grateful for it. His story resonates with countless young dreamers who face setbacks in their own pursuits. He often advises them, embrace failure as a teacher. Every rejection has a lesson hidden within it. Reinvent, don't retreat. Use setbacks as opportunities to refine yourself. Stay disciplined. Growth takes time, but quiet preparation always pays off. Believe in the long game. One rejection is not the end of the road. It's just the beginning. Today, Dylan Wong is celebrated not only for his on-screen charisma, but also for his resilience. Fans admire his journey as much as his performances, because it shows that behind the glamour lies grit. He continues to challenge himself with diverse roles, never settling into comfort zones. Whether portraying a romantic hero, a complex anti-hero, or a historical figure, Dylan approaches every character with the same philosophy. Respect the craft, respect the story, and give the audience your truth. And at the heart of his truth lies that very first rejection, the one that broke him, reshaped him, and ultimately defined him. The story of Dylan Wong's first rejection is more than an anecdote about failure. It is a narrative of resilience, reinvention, and triumph. The morning of hope. It was a crisp spring morning in Chengdu when Dylan Wong woke up with a racing heart. His audition was scheduled for 10 a.m., but he had already been awake since dawn, pacing his small room. He stood in front of the mirror, clutching the script with trembling fingers. "Breathe, Dylan. Just breathe," he whispered to his reflection. He tried to steady himself by repeating the lines, but each time he rehearsed, his voice cracked slightly at the emotional parts. He told himself it was only nerves, that once he entered the audition room, adrenaline would carry him through. Before leaving, he texted a friend, "Today's the big day. Wish me luck." His friend replied instantly, "You got this. Remember, you're born for this." Dylan smiled, slipping his script into his bag, unaware that the day would end with a very different message written in his heart. The long wait. At the audition site, dozens of hopefuls gathered in the hallway, each carrying their dreams in the form of a script. Some were laughing loudly, others sitting silently, and a few pacing like Dylan. He tried to blend in, but his nervous energy gave him away. When the assistant called his name, "Wong Hetty, you're up next," his palms turned clammy. He swallowed hard, squared his shoulders, and walked in. The room was sterile, lit by fluorescent lights. 3 casting directors sat behind a long table, not unkind but professional, their expressions unreadable. One gesture for him to begin. The performance. Dylan drew a breath and stepped into character. The scene called for raw emotion, a confrontation where a son begged his father for acceptance. He raised his voice, let his hands tremble, and tried to pour every ounce of truth into the lines. For a brief second, he thought he had touched something real. His chest ached as he delivered the last sentence, his eyes misty. He looked up at the directors, waiting for even the faintest sign of approval, but the silence was deafening. One director scribbled something on paper. Another leaned back, frowning slightly. The third asked him to repeat the scene in a calmer tone, which he attempted, though now doubt clouded his delivery. After a few minutes, they thanked him curtly. No smiles, no comments, just a polite dismissal. Dylan bowed, walked out, and felt his knees weaken the moment the door closed behind him. The crushing call. For days, he waited by the phone, replaying every detail. Maybe they saw potential. Maybe the silence was a good sign. Then came the call. The voice on the other end was kind but firm. "Thank you for auditioning, but you didn't make it this time." Dylan froze. The words echoed in his ears, turning his hope into dust. He forced himself to respond politely, hung up, and sat in silence. That night, he went for a long walk. Neon lights from shops flickered around him. Couples laughed in the distance, but he felt completely alone. He stopped at a small bridge, leaning against a railing, and stared at the water. "Why not me?" he muttered. "What did I do wrong?" His reflection in the water looked back at him, fragile and uncertain. For the first time, he considered the possibility that maybe his dream was too big for him. Rejection seeped into Dylan's everyday life like a shadow. He found it hard to focus, his mind constantly circling around the audition. He replayed the director's frown, the scribbled notes, the polite dismissal. One evening, while out with friends, someone casually asked, "So, did you hear back from that audition?" The question was innocent, but it hit him like a punch. Dylan forced a smile and said, "Not this time." Laughter and conversation swirled around the table, but he barely tasted his food. Inside, he felt hollow. At home, he scribbled in his journal, "Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I should go back to a normal life. Maybe my dream is just a fantasy." What haunted him most wasn't the rejection itself, but comment he overheard from one of the casting directors before leaving the audition room. "He's got the look, but there's no depth yet, just surface." Those words burrowed deep into Dylan's chest. No depth. They made him question everything. Was he shallow? Had he only relied on appearance without true substance? Each time he remembered that phrase, his heart sank further. One late night, unable to sleep, Dylan sat at his desk with the script still lying there, crumpled from his nervous rehearsals. He stared at it for a long time. He realized he had two choices: walk away now and avoid future pain, or confront the weakness the directors had pointed out and turn it into strength. In that moment, something inside him shifted. His despair hardened into determination. "If they say I lack depth," he whispered, "then I'll find it. I'll dig until I can bring truth to any character. I won't let this rejection define me." The next morning, Dylan searched for acting classes. He signed up for workshops, even though they were expensive and intimidating. He bought books on acting theory, borrowed plays from the library, and began studying films with a critical eye. Rejection had hurt him deeply, but it also lit a fire he didn't know he had. It became the spark that would guide his reinvention. Looking back, Dylan often calls that first rejection his greatest teacher. It broke him, yes, but it also revealed who he truly was. Not someone who gave up when the road got rough, but someone willing to endure, to learn, and to rise. That single moment, standing on the bridge, staring at his fragile reflection, marked the beginning of his transformation. Because sometimes the first rejection isn't